Hi everybody, I'm Bob Kovacs, and this will be a review of the Panasonic AG-CX350 camera. This is a new camcorder designed for professional television use, such as you might get at a television station doing TV news. Also, it's good for corporate, religious applications, educational applications. It has a list price of around $3,700. At pretty good features. One of the most spectacular features is an excellent 20:1 zoom lens. So the lens really does some fantastic work. It uses a 1-inch sensor, so it's not as big as a Micro Four Thirds sensor, but it's not as small as the 2/3 inch sensors that many professional cameras use. It's kind of a good sweet spot, and it's what enables them to get a 20x zoom lens in a package relatively small like this. It has a lot of professional features. As you can see, it has a mount for a shotgun microphone. It comes with a mount, but it does not come with a microphone. The microphones plug in using industry standard XLR connectors. It has two viewfinders or monitors. It has a flip out monitor, and it has an eyepiece monitor here at the back of the camera. Some of the features that I find interesting on the side of the camera include a switchable neutral density filter that lets you work in a variety of light settings. And then you have the switchable gain control and white balance controls. I'll have a little bit more about those. Right here are your audio controls. Again, this has professional XLR audio inputs, and this allows you to select those inputs. There's also a microphone on the front of the camera, and you can adjust the level. So you have full control over your audio with this. The audio controls are underneath this cover, which opens right up, and you've got a variety of switches here to select the various inputs and settings you want. And of course, there are two potentiometers for the audio 1 and 2 volume control. This is a thin plastic door, as is the door that goes over the SD cards. And to me, these seem maybe a little bit in danger of getting damaged on the camera. Everything else seems pretty rugged except for these two plastic doors. To show you the features on this side, first I'll take the shotgun mic off. Now the shotgun mic mount comes with the camera, but the camera does not come with a shotgun microphone itself. So there we go. Now we have the typical rocker switch that you'd find on an ENG camera for the zoom lens, and this does have a very nice soft touch. Of course, here we have various rings to control the camera. You've got focus, and this is your zoom, and inside of that is your iris ring. And all of them are easily reached with your left hand so that you can get to those. And most of the time, of course, you're going to do zoom with the rocker, and your hand fits up through there like that. The start-stop button is right here, and this is also the on-off switch for the camera. If you pull this down, now the camera turns on. There are lots of features on the back of the CX350, starting with this XLR connector for one of two audio inputs. The other audio input, an XLR connector, is up by the handle of the camera, but this one is on the back. Underneath this door are the two slots for SD cards. Now the CX350 works at such a very high data rate, you will need at least a V60 SD card to enable some of those faster features. In other words, if you want to record at the 400 megabit per second speed that this camera will do, you will need at least a V60 card. Panasonic actually recommends a V90 card. You can work with only one SD card in the slots. Of course, if you have two SD cards, then there are some features that you can take advantage of. You can have one card fill up and then automatically switch to the other card. You could have the two cards recording simultaneously, and I think there may even be another option as well. Underneath some of these other flaps back here, we have a remote control jack. Here we have a Ethernet connector, and by the way, the CX350 will allow you to connect it via Ethernet and have full control over the camera, so you can start and stop recording, and you can also control the focus and iris and zoom all through the Ethernet port on this camera. Down here is the power connector. The CX350 does come with a power supply that you can connect into that connector. Of course, the camera will run off of a battery, and it's a pretty nice battery that has a quick check button that lets you know the status of the charge. So that's pretty handy. Panasonic probably sells a couple different batteries for this. This particular battery will run the camera for about 2 hours. Underneath this flap here is a full-size HDMI port. So if you need to plug in an external monitor, you can plug that in right there. To remove the battery, press the button at the upper right, then lift the battery slightly and pull it out. The top of the camera has an integrated grip that fits in the hand pretty well. It has 2 cold shoes that you can use to mount a variety of gear. You could put an external monitor on it or another microphone or whatever you might need up there. There's also a start-stop recording button as well as a zoom in-out lever switch. Now this switch doesn't have the same touch and smoothness of the main zoom rocker on the lens, but it will get you in and out if you need to get there. And of course the start-stop switch, this has a cover that you can slide over it so that you don't accidentally start and stop when you don't intend to, because that would be really bad. Also on top of the camera is a flip-out viewfinder that rotates to a variety of angles. This is a pretty bright viewfinder. It's not spectacularly bright, but it's pretty bright, and you can use it in the daylight. The predecessor to this camera, the UX180, it had a pull-out viewfinder that was not as bright as the viewfinder here on the CX350, so that's really good. Of course, under the display when you flip it out are all the controls if you need to get into the menu and all the navigation controls. This is a touchscreen, so there are times when you will need to touch the touchscreen. For instance, when I have formatted the chip, I've had to touch one of the settings on the touchscreen to actually proceed with the format. None of the controls here, none of the buttons would allow me to complete the format. I had to touch the screen. Also right up here on the very top is the mount for the shotgun microphone. You can remove this if you never need it, or if you don't need it in a particular shoot, you can just take this off the camera, but otherwise it stays up here without any trouble. On top of the handle, there is a 1/4 inch mounting thread so that you can hang the CX350 from a device like a jib or a crane if you need to hang it. Of course, on the underside of the camera, there's multiple mounting points as well that you would normally use for a tripod, but this allows you to hang it from above. The lens hood with its integrated capping feature is easily removed by pressing this button here and twisting it off. It comes right off and goes right back on again. Underneath, the lens has a 67mm filter size, so if you need to get an infrared filter or ultraviolet filter, you would need to get a 67mm filter. And again, this goes right back on. Finally, these 2 connectors over here, the top one is an SDI BNC connector, so if you connect this to a professional television studio or to a professional television truck, you'd probably want to go with the SDI connector right there. And beneath that is a time code in-out port. So if you have this in a system where you have it connected to time code so that all cameras are timed with the same time code, you would connect it to the lower of these 2 BNC ports right there. I found that the recording settings were a little bit confusing and took some time to figure out. You might think that the recording setting in the menu would be where you would select the recording format that you're going to be using. But it doesn't have that. It has the formatting, clip name if you wanted to assign names to your clips, pre-record. It has the timecode user bits and the record counter. You can have the record counter set a variety of different ways and a couple of other things, as you can see. If you want to select the recording format in the menu, that's under the system selection. So scroll down to System, and you can choose frequency, whether it's 60 cycles or 59.94 or 24 or 23.98. That's selected there. The file format, whether it's MOV or AVC HD. AVC HD is only good for HD recording. It's not good for 4K recording. And of course, the record format. And there is a monstrous selection of recording formats, many of them 4K, some of them not 4K. So you can choose among all sorts of different quality levels with 4K, and you can do, in fact, 60 frame 4K video with the CX350 camera. I took the AG-CX350 out at night to see how it performed. Now, the sensitivity switch on the side of the camera did not do anything as far as I could tell, but I dove into the menus and found a sensitivity selection in the menus. So first we're looking at the menu setting for normal sensitivity, and then we're going to look at the menu setting for high sensitivity. At best there's only a small difference here, but I did think that I did see a difference. Overall, I think the AG-CX350 looks pretty good at night. I thought the noise was fairly low and the scenes were sharp and well defined. I think it could be very usable at night. One other thing I shot at night was more to demonstrate the wonderful 20x zoom lens. This is the Lincoln Memorial at night. Now at the end of this long zoom, the white balance changes because I had the camera set for automatic white balance, but the zoom is just fantastic. One more night scene. Here in the foreground, the water fountain is the World War II memorial, and beyond it is, of course, the Washington Monument, and far beyond that, the U.S. Capitol building. They're all surrounded by a very dark sky, and the range from bright white to very dark black is pretty tough for any camera to handle. Here I thought the CX350 did a nice job. With its long lens, the AG-CX350 is pretty good for wildlife shooting. Now, I took it to the zoo, and that's not exactly the same thing as heading into the woods and looking for wildlife, but the wildlife isn't all that close at the zoo either. So here are some wildlife shots I got with the AG-CX350. The CX350 makes for a good ENG camera. As you can see, the US Capitol is behind me, and I'm here. This would be a typical newsman kind of shot. There's plenty of resolution, and the camera with its 20:1 lens can go amazingly wide and then pretty substantially close up as well. Hey, this is Bob Kovacs reporting from the National Mall in Washington, D.C. We got some scenes from a park, and with its big lens, it's easy to do a rack focus. And just because I got it, here's another wildlife shot. While I had the camera, I used it to shoot a car maintenance video. When I shot the video, I set the camera to do HEVC encoding at 200 megabits 422 10-bit. So this gives you some idea of how well the camera responds at that setting. You can see the entire car maintenance video by going to the description for this video and clicking on the link for the car maintenance video there. There's a lot to like about the CX350. It has a lot of terrific features, an amazing variety of 4K settings in which you could set it for, some of which are very high quality. I really like the eyepiece viewfinder that pivots up and down to make it a lot more ergonomically flexible to use. And of course the lens is fantastic. The zoom on the lens just seems to go and go and go and go. Really fantastic. However, some of these controls down here, if they work the way they're supposed to, I couldn't figure them out. For instance, the gain control. The only way that I could get some additional gain was to go into the menu and select gain in there. Now, maybe I have something not set correctly somewhere, but that means that the menus and the switches aren't working together as intuitively as I would have expected. But once you figure it all out, there's a lot here to work with. So it's a terrific camera for news operation, or for a wedding videographer if you want an awful lot of flexibility, or for corporate applications or educational applications. This is just about the right price range, and it has the right sort of future capability so that you're not going to be wanting to upgrade your camera in 3 years. I think this will be able to make you do for several years, beyond 2 or 3 years. In any event, I like the CX350. I wish that some of the features that it has were a little bit easier for me to find in the menus or on the switches themselves and actually use them. But there's a lot of things that are great about this camera. So overall, I do like it. Hey everybody, I'm Bob Kovacs. Thanks for watching.